Hello and welcome to the Wire Wrap. I'm Sravasti Dasgupta. Amid Israel's ongoing war in Gaza, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is on a two-day visit to the country, and he has already addressed the Israel Parliament, Knesset over there, where both Netanyahu and Modi have spoken about the friendship between India and Israel. Back in India, the criticism against the Modi government's action against the IYC, the Indian Youth Congress members who had protested at the AI summit last week, and they have been arrested. And several criticisms coming in for the Modi government about the overreach and the overreaction in response to that protest. And the French government, meanwhile, has firmly ruled out transferring the source codes of the Rafale jets amid the ongoing negotiations with India for 114 more jets. So what does all this mean? To discuss all this, I'm being joined by Seema Chishti. She's editor at The Wire, as well as Hartosh Singh, he's editor at The Caravan. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's get started with Modi's visit to Israel, because that is ongoing, and he's just addressed the Israeli Parliament, the Knesset, yesterday. And let's talk a little bit about what has happened over there. Netanyahu has, in a sense, given him a grand welcome, and he delivered his speech to a huge round of applause, even though members of the opposition had walked out. But that was for a separate reason, because of the leader of the Supreme Court was not invited for the address. But most importantly, the common refrain from both Netanyahu and Modi has been that they are great friends of each other. And Netanyahu has said that Modi had stood by Israel, stood for Israel, and stood for the Jewish people, remarks that carry great meaning in the context of Israel's war in Gaza. What do you make of this visit, Seema, if you want to start off?
It's quite unfortunate to begin with. The whole context in which this is happening. At any time, this would raise severe questions and severe red flags. This brohood, this kind of promotion as if it is between Bibi Netanyahu and Narendra Modi, this friendship, these ties. But as a country of 1.4 billion is involved, at this particular geopolitical dark moment where it seems as if an attack on Iran is imminent, there is an attempt by Bibi Netanyahu to forge his own hexagonal alliance, which is an alliance of some like-minded countries, to try and completely derail the whole Western Asia arrangement and essentially finish off any claims to sovereignty of the Palestinians or any question of identity or statehood. This combines with the difficult situation he finds himself domestically. So any visit by a Indian Prime Minister clearly launders his reputation brilliantly and makes him seem much bigger than what he is. So I don't know what the thing is for this timing, at a time when this Iran attack, the hexagonal alliance, and to discuss spy tech and to try and lock yourself into a defense arrangement with Israel sends sort of really very disturbing messages. Netanyahu is a war criminal. He's been designated as such by international agencies who've done this after diligent reporting on the thing, and to be caught in an embrace and personally saying all these things, India has very little to gain, if at all, and much to lose, in my view.
The strongest applause during Modi's address yesterday at the Knesset came when he addressed the October 7, 2023 attack by the Hamas, and he said, "We feel your pain, we share your grief. India stands with Israel firmly with full conviction in this moment and beyond." The criticism now against Modi is that he made no mention of Gaza or Netanyahu's ongoing genocidal actions on the West Bank as well as Gaza. The opposition parties in India have raised certain questions, but is this in line with the Modi government's relations with Israel in the last few years?
Well, clearly, and it is not just the Modi government. I mean, Hindutva and Zionism in its expansionist form have been old friends for a long, long time. They've always warmed up to each other. And I mean, this culmination, strangely enough, I think this is the only time we can use the word Modi and Bibi together without inviting the wrath of the right wing here. But the fact is, it suits them both. Right now, Mr. Modi is entangled in all sorts of controversies and weaknesses back home. He is not looking very good domestically in terms of how he handled China, how he's handled the economy, how he's handled tariff, how he's looking at Trump. This is typical of Modi. This is the time you go outside, set up a stage where questions are about something else. You get the attention from the media you want. These questions are not pursued. Bibi is clearly in trouble perpetually domestically, is facing pressure, is isolated internationally despite all the support they get. in this context, to have a major country on the world stage stand with you and basically endorse what is a genocide is exactly godsend in many ways to it. And I think this is basically coming together of ideology. I think both Modi and Bibi have spoken of that civilians should not be threatened under any case. Both of them are hinting at terrorists, but their governments are some of the worst perpetrators, in Modi's case, indirectly through the Hindu right, on their own civilians, through lynchings, through attacks on Muslims, through their marginalization. And in the case of Bibi, the attack on civilians, what is Gaza but a mass killing of civilians in some senses? These two people should be talking of violence directed at civilians when they are in one way tacitly or directly behind some of the worst crimes against civilians that we have seen in our decades. I mean, it's absurd, but that's where the world is today.
Did it remind you somewhat, folks, of Ab Ki Baar Trump Sarkar, when Mr. Modi goes and kind of just pushes himself into American politics and needlessly says that? And look what happened with that Trump Sarkar. So I hope that India doesn't completely fall flat. So even if there's some things to be gained by way of spy tech or defense deals, it may just completely fall apart. And I don't think the technology transfer is happening so smoothly. A lot of our big media commentators would rage and rave about how it's easy. That would be very tied with what America wants to do. So the Iron Dome, etc., is not just smoothly coming our way. If, you know, even if other technology that India boasts it will get is not been an easy buy. So,
and though there is the other factor, at the moment it's not a major player, but its growing involvement in the India-Israel arms trade is Mr. Adani himself. He is the greatest beneficiary of this trade. And wherever you see Modi wander off on such excursions, you always see this name coming up in some sense. A lot of the weapon manufacturer that is going towards Israel over the past few years either has been transferred or set up by the Adani group. They are now one of the bigger players in that thing, and it is only growing. And that back and forth between the two countries, including the involvement of Adani in infrastructure in Israel, is quite evident now.
Also, I want to pick up from what you said that this is coming at a situation where Netanyahu is, in a sense, facing global isolation. More in the last 17-18 months since Netanyahu started this genocide in Gaza, the only two other world leaders who have visited have been the US Secretary of State as well as the German Chancellor, and Modi is the major leader who has gone there. So how much of this is related to, as you were just mentioning earlier, the fact that India is Israel's largest purchaser of arms, and at a time when Israel's actions with relation to its arms in Palestine is being criticized, India's visit to this regard, is it simply about trade and arms transfer and technology transfer?
Well, I think it's a lot, as he said, this whole Hindutva, Zion, the Zionist thing. And that was said clearly. In a lot of ways, Mr. Modi's tone was actually quite very much like speaking like the Prime Minister or a king of a Hindu India speaking to a Zionist kind of president. So that was very unfortunate. Somebody, in fact, Siddharth Vaidarajan, our founding editor, was live yesterday after the speech in the Knesset. And he pointed this out, that while talking about the parallels of festivals, there was no mention of Ramzan, which is on, Eid, which is also celebrated by, 20% of India at least. So this whole carefully cherry picking the kind of things, the motherland, fatherland, the cherry picking of the turning of, and just completely turning your back on a deep kind of comradeship, fellowship and support that India has given Palestine, starting from pre-independence India. Gandhi, Nehru, leading leaders of our verse, what everything is kind of twisted into my friendship with Bibi and Hindutva meets Zionism. So sure, there are domestic needs, etc., that were coloring it, but I think trade and defense would be also very critical, because India is concerned post Operation Sindoor about a growing kind of isolation in the neighborhood, China and Pakistan coming together and being serious adversaries than it would have earlier liked us all to believe. So I think it wants to kind of go out and extend an arm to Israel and beef up other things. I don't see Israel particularly helping us when we were in trouble with China in the Doklam crisis, or later during the border crisis in 2020, or with Pakistan. So Israel has never come good, but there's no harm in trying. So I think Mr. Modi went to the one person which, other than the Taliban regime, which came out and supported India at the time of Operation Sindoor.
There is, if I may just comment, there is an irony here. This is, I think, the only ideological tie-up where Zionism has made peace with an ideology that actually has endorsed the final solution officially on record through Golwalkar, who said the treatment of the Jews under Hitler is the model for India's treatment of its minorities in a Hindu Rashtra that they are constructing. And it has never raised questions for Israel that this kind of statement is officially the viewpoint of the RSS and what Modi represents in some way or the other. They have never distanced away from that parallel in a way that discounts Golwalkar as a person in a real sense. The other side of it is this sort of the idea that this is a reliable ally. Yes, they claimed that during Kargil there were supplies, the weapon supply is steady, it does not get interrupted by political situations. This is a larger framework in Modi and his government are seeing foreign policy in such pragmatic deal-making terms, which has isolated India in the place where your lack of ideological positioning means you have no permanent friends. And when you are faced with the kind of pressure Trump put on them, there is nobody to stand up with you and speak for you, and you have no place to go. A much weaker economic India could tell America to jump off in a way that Modi does not even dare to. He has still not voiced his facts on Modi and what Trump has been constantly saying about deal making, about bringing peace to the subcontinent, and often joking about Modi, that he could get Modi in trouble if he spoke about what he knew about Modi, etc. Maybe it's a joke, but it's something that Modi would not take from anybody else. But he has to shut up and take it.
Before we move on from this, finally, I want to ask you that there has been some criticism from opposition parties in India, the Congress, the left parties, and today, this morning, I also saw a statement from a TMC MP. But the general response, I would say, from the opposition has been muted to a large extent of a visit of this nature at a time like this. How do you see that?
I don't think it's been muted. I think Rahul Gandhi said something like, "Bhag gaye Modi ji, he's run away," at a time when where I asked him to cancel the interim deal. And also, as we were discussing before the show, there's just so much flying at the opposition, and in terms of its repression, internal dissent, so much of propaganda, everything is so amped up, the whole new censorship regime, that I think the opposition also perhaps weighs and picks its points. And this is a time when we'll also be heading into elections very soon, very important state elections, which are more important for the opposition, if you like, than the ruling party. The ruling party has to just make trouble there, of a significant level, but they would have a lot to lose. So I think it's because of that. But did you expect a more robust response?
No, in some ways, I think if you look at it from the point of view opposition, real politics, the fact is that Modi is looking to this visit as a diversion from the issues he's facing here. So the more the opposition gets involved in this, obviously you have to clarify your position over and over again on where you stand with Israel and genocide. But the more attention you pay to Modi in Israel, you take away from what is happening domestically here. That is what Modi is not able to answer for, in some senses. And I think the opposition has to weigh this fact of political realities on the ground, look at Modi's vulnerabilities and focus on them.
And since we are speaking about the opposition, let's also talk about what has happened last week during the AI summit in Delhi. The Indian Youth Congress workers held a protest inside Bharat Mandapam where the event was going on, and after that they were arrested for breaching security and raising anti-national slogans. And the whole narrative around this protest has been that this shirtless protest has been held at a global summit which has shamed India. The BJP has called it a national shame. But interestingly, let's also tell our viewers about what the Delhi police has said in its remand application, that the initial probe has revealed structured allocation of roles, concealment tactics and coordinated post-incident movement, and said that the entire conspiracy, including its hierarchy, funding and interstate coordination, needed to be unearthed. How do you see this reaction to this protest, which is essentially a group of workers who went in? Yes, they took off their shirts, but protests at global summits are routine. I mean, whether it's COP20 or anywhere else, there are robust protests everywhere. And to paint this as anti-national and a conspiracy where T-shirts are being unearthed from another state, how do you see this?
No, but look at the language. And this language is what is frightening. You can see it in how the Delhi police and the police in India in general have become a master at concocting fear and terror out of nothing. After all, you look at the Delhi violence cases. How was that constructed? A WhatsApp group, coordination, conspiracy, danger to the state. It's a protest by Youth Congress workers. A party coordinates, big deal. They went and protested against what they didn't like, big deal. The country was not deemed anti-national and shamed by Modi having built a robo. Everybody knew the Prime Minister is a laughing stock, and nobody cares about that. That in Indian university passes of a Chinese robo and our minister is tweeting about it, that is not a national shame, that is not anti-national. Instead, protests, which are at the very heart of how India itself was founded, how the British were opposed, is suddenly becoming the thing you need to criminalize. Again, this is a distraction from the idiocy of the summit, for which both Modi and Vaishnav themselves are responsible. And instead, we are focusing on a small protest by few people raising some valid points.
Just to give the counter argument that the BJP is making over here is that you're well within your rights to protest in a democracy, and protests do take place, but why did they go inside? That is there, because when you have gone inside, that's a breach of security and etc.
BJP has an elaborate rule book of what anyone should do or should not do. They should tell that to ABVP, the RSS wing, which went into Azim Premji University and broke stuff, did things. That vandalism is what? Nationalism? So it's like, show me the man and I'll show you the rule. Why can't you enter protests? There are designated protest areas. Anyway, at the AI summit, even normal people who had stalls couldn't get in, and others kind of lost earables and stuff. So, but why are you not building in protests at various COP summits, etc.? There are places designated for protests. But in India, we're just so terrified about the power of a cartoon, about the power of a protest, and about the power of a laugh or a ki that, the whole town and the police, everybody just comes down with very serious consequences. What happened to those children who were protesting foul air? All kinds of threats about UAPA, etc. because they're protesting air which the chief minister should be protesting. The chief minister, the prime minister, the home minister, everybody could be very sick if they continue breathing air without purifiers. That's what we've brought the national capital to. And if youngsters protest, you should be proud that it's a democracy which allows kids to think and demand accountability. But I think that whole subversion of that we are a monarchy and you're a subject and just stay in your place. I'll give you food grains occasionally because I feel like it's my largesse, don't you dare protest. Because, so I think we're in that, and we've almost got used to these stenciled, photocopied police charges, reports which have serious consequences. Umar Khalid is in jail for 5 years for a case that has not started. So I think all that is linked, and this is a way to really push the paper ahead.
If they were so serious about this being a security breach at a high security event where the Prime Minister is there, start by suspending the person in charge of security concerns here. Why don't you take action against the Delhi Police Commissioner or Ajit Doval for security arrangements? If the breach has happened and you are charging people for breaching the security, begin by charging the people in charge of security. Open up an investigation on what kind of security they ordered. How could they let any 10 people walk in and take off their t-shirts? What kind of security was there? Why not just, what I'm saying is that we know that this is not a serious effort. The security did not exist to stop people like this. Now you are claiming post facto, trying to invent excuses. But if you were really inventing excuses, you would have to start with your own, which you are not going to do in some sense.
Are they also irritated with the white t-shirt, which has become a bit of a political metaphor, and also with the tune that was pasted on the t-shirt? Because the conspiracy is apparently printing of that t-shirt, which is so ridiculous that everybody knows that there was a protest. What's the conspiracy? Like, we know, dude, it was live on, it was aired, and it happened well after all the big cats had left. So I don't think the heads of state or people are hanging around. There's nothing wrong.
I would think that the heads of state are used to seeing such
clearly,
protests.
They would probably think we're more human than being just robo dog. And it's better than seeing Chinese robo dogs pretending to be from Galgotia University.
All of those who come from democracies are used to be mocked and laughed at. Functional democracies, except for what we have here.
But a serious part of this is also that we've been seeing in the last few days, journalists who have been tweeting about this are receiving notices on Twitter that their posts are being removed in accordance with Section 69 of the IT Act. And most of these posts are in relation to BJP's post where it has posted a video of the Congress's protest saying national shame. And if any of these journalists have tweeted, for instance, Anna Vetikard, she had responded to that saying that what is a national shame, whether it is a protest or is it the lynching of Muslims or the attacks on Dalits. So those kind of tweets are being removed continuously. This is another form of attack happening
I'm
simultaneously.
sorry to kind of invoke you personally, but you did that two-parter on the entire censorship regime which is in place. We've always believed that Mrs. Gandhi had a censorship manual. This is not first emergency because there's no declaration of a censorship. But the manual that you found and you spoke about makes it very clear that we will be able to remove anything that we find offensive, not even invoke people who are whatever creators. That content creator phase is also very bad, but people who like generate these thoughts, whose thoughts and ideas they are out of it. They will tell the social media intermediaries, FIRs will be generated at bulk and it will be taken down. So the government has been issuing bulk orders, like 11,000 posts are taken down. The whole thing has been automated in a way to try and control social media, which may be like a terrible place and all for various other reasons, point taken. But because the capture over big media is complete, the only place where they think they have some, which is going out of hand, is digital and social media. So all these elaborate schemes like the manuals that you unearthed are being used to take all this down. So, don't tell me that the 52-second tune by The Wire, which was extremely funny, but was anti-national because it showed Modi in a crown and the joke was on him. And we used Jo Uchit Samjho Wo Karo, which is the line that your colleague put out in their cover. So what is it that annoys them so much about just asking questions? And all that the leader of opposition did when he waved the Caravan story and said, answer questions. You have to answer whether the government took responsibility or not. So I think this whole thing is just like shut the kid down, anesthetize the kid, blanket. वो क्या कहते हैं वो भीगी कंबल में लेके पटक के पीटते हैं. That's the idea. That सारी citizenry, whoever is asking questions, just.
And because we have you over here, Hartosh, I also want to ask you, because Seema has mentioned that the whole reaction to the article in the Caravan, which most of this month in Parliament, the entire conversation has been dominated over that, whether it was the fact that the book has not been published, but the fact is that the excerpts of the book were published in the Caravan and it is in the public domain. Did you expect this kind of a reaction coming in from the government and Parliament being upended, disrupted, not functioning, Modi not coming to the house when you were putting that story out?
So we didn't publish the excerpts. So to make the case, what we did is use the manuscript to tell what the manuscript contains in some senses. The excerpts would have required permission from the publisher, etc.
Which was already published by PTI.
It was already published. PTI had already done it. So there was nothing new in the fact that this has been circulating and doing the rounds and people have access to this. In some senses, the publishers themselves had published the copies and left it there. That they had not yet put it out in the market is a different thing. They can say all they want. The real fact is Sushant's story goes to the heart of what the trouble with this government is. Its failure to act and react in a way where the buck stops with the Prime Minister. He takes onus for decisions and then answers or deals with the fallout of those decisions. Here you have clearly the story indicating that this is our Prime Minister disappearing at a crucial, totally disappearing. We don't even know what he was doing. Even to say jo uchit karna hai karo, which is an absurd thing at such a situation, as has been pointed out the story, you could at least be in place to say it. And you can take less than 2.5 hours when Chinese troops are approaching our borders to get back with a response which means nothing and is again a sign of, I have no other word for it, is prime ministerial cowardice at the highest level. Now, this is actually the issue on which the whole debate should happen. What is the BJP trying to make this debate about? Where did he get the book? How can it be published? It's like trying to argue over technicalities when you have been caught in terms of a major crime. You will not answer about what the problem is, what the issue is, what really happened, what the government's big failure was, what it tells you about Modi and his prime ministership. Instead, you want to get into what did the publisher do, is it really published, who has the say, etc. And the media, the mass media, is a willing conspirator in this whole way of suppressing information because they don't want to focus on the real questions. Everybody knows what the real question is and what it says about Modi. Instead, they want to focus on whether the manuscript was publicly available or not.
Also, I think this goes to the heart of this whole claim by the BJP that we are the ultimate guardians of national security. And this exposition and this which the government has to answer, jo uchit samjho wo karo. It is only uchit that they step up and take calls and answer. There will be no briefings, and this hits out at that national security claim. So they'll do everything to run away as far and wide, but I don't know for how long they can run. It's going to look like it's catching up.
One final question before we move on from this is that something that Amit Shah said during that discussion on that first day when Rahul Gandhi started referring to the Caravan article, and Amit Shah rose and said that magazine mein to koi bhi kuch bhi likh sakta hai. Is that another form of, I mean, there have been instances in parliament where people have legitimately referred to news articles published in magazines, newspapers, and this disdain that is shown. Is this part of kind of the government's effort to just show any kind of counter information as wrong?
Look, they were caught off guard. Amit Shah was blubbering literally. Yeah, he didn't have a response, and what was he saying? Yeah, they've been trying to find out what is wrong with what we've been writing for 15 years. They've been scrutinizing every line, every word. They've tried to take down our stories. People related to their government have taken us to court, and they haven't been able to find any problems. For him to say that, he knows that he's actually lying. Koi bhi kuch nahi likh sakta. There are protocols, there are ways in which decisions. It is because those protocols in place that the magazine story has veracity. It hit them where it hurts them, because everybody knows what is being said is the literal truth. And Amit Shah has no response to that. Instead, they want to, as I said, rhetorically try to blubber their way out of what is the truth that hurts them the most. Their weakness on national security, the indecisiveness of Modi, his actual failure to be a strong leader when it really counts.
And all this, of course, is in relation to the whole of this month, where we have seen all of this kind of falling into place, whether the reaction to the IYC protests or what happened in Parliament in response to the Caravan's article, or even how Modi's visit is being perceived in the mainstream media. But finally, let's also speak about the Rafale deal, which is underway. President Emmanuel Macron of France was here last week during the AI summit, and he was here also for a lucrative sale. Now, prior to his arrival, the Indian government sought to drum up a lot of excitement about the Rafale deal, but what was not mentioned in the mainstream media was the fact that a Paris-based prosecutor is still continuing their probe into the alleged corruption in the earlier sale of 36 Rafale jets, which were finalized through an MOU with India in January 2016. But the present deal, Seema, with 114 Rafale jets which are being purchased, negotiations are underway. This is being also criticized for various reasons. What are the main criticisms to your mind to this particular deal?
So again, a short backstory, I'm sure our viewers all know, but just a quick recap, is that we already had a deal in place which UPA 2 had done, which UPA 1 had actually done, and that was there for a large number of planes with a good deal of advantage. Possible HAL was the partner that would benefit, that would manufacture some of those planes here. They would be more suitable for our conditions, and a degree of technology transfer would have taken place. Mr. Modi comes into office without any transparency, scraps that deal and decides to buy 36 Rafale, suddenly by introducing various clauses which are very suspect. And this is not just me saying it, these are stories done in detail by the Caravan, by N. Ram, this senior journalist, one of our most senior journalists in the Hindu, who broke Bofors and had much to say on that, which the BJP was talking a lot about. He has done pages and pages of stories on Rafale and the problems there with the way Mr. Modi renegotiated that deal. And of course, now with you're getting 114 deals, you're going back to a bad version of the old deal, which means very expensive, and India will not be able to get that kind of technology transfer or benefits had you just allowed that Manmohan Singh deal, that A.K. Antony deal, led deal, India deal, that was the government of India putting its imprimatur on the deal, to have gone through. So all this is like really bad, and a very striking and a very disturbing thing was the role that Anil Ambani played. The prosecutor you mentioned is actually quizzing the wife of Hollande, who was then French Prime Minister, about conversations and ties with Anil Ambani. Anil Ambani had zero experience in defense companies. He just sets up a defense company, and he gets to be the kind of partner of India in that deal that Mr. Modi negotiated. Why? On what basis? What was everything to question the deal, to ensure that these things are clean and neat, were all shut down immediately. The Indian government has not cooperated with French prosecutors, have done nothing, and we know we are deeply reliant on Rafale. Even with Operation Sindoor, on the second day when stuff happens and India hits Pakistan, etc., the Rafale played a role. But it's of deep concern that 114 planes, we still don't know whether we gain in terms of tech, whether we gain in terms of our ability to be Atmanirbhar, to be the big power that we are, is going to happen in a corrupt-free way. So they'll have to disclose everything along the line. It is not just this deal that needs to be disclosed, but the government of India should come out with a white paper and do what it did not do in 2016 and 17 and disclose everything and tell us what is happening with Anil Ambani. Currently, you have the ED, the Enforcement Directorate, is like on his case. They've just sealed his house this morning, we read in the papers.
But because you're talking about the transparency in this deal, the fact is also that the French government has firmly ruled out transferring critical source codes for electronic systems as a part of the ongoing negotiations, so which essentially implies that technology transfer is not going to take place. So what is the real benefit of this?
This was one of the real problems with the renegotiations. There were serious objections raised on these grounds and many other serious objections. The people who finally took the decision to overrule these objections and go ahead with it included Doval himself, who was there, and the Prime Minister. Both these were major players in overruling serious objections by various ministries in terms of when the deal was taking place. So yes, that's a valid question. And then whatever offset was given to Anil Ambani, and now the government is examining the man. We already knew that this was the case in some senses. The third question, and this goes again to the question of transparency and democracy, that we are being told the Rafale is a great plane. It's being used as a reason for sign up again. And day 2 is being mentioned, day 3 is being mentioned, day 4 is being mentioned, day 1 also happened. No? And we don't know what happened on day 1. Where did we fail? Our countermeasures went wrong, the Rafale went down. It is not the Rafale's problem. But if you are going to boast about day 2, then you have to be clear about day 1 also. Was the problem, at what stage did the problem exist that allowed the Pakistanis, according to reports, to take down many of these planes? Have we made sure that we have the counters? Will the Rafale again be vulnerable in the same way? No. So you can speak about day 2 and examine it any detail you want, but day 1 we can't talk about. So you will cherry pick your way to a deal without answering all the questions. If you have to be honest, then you examine day 1 as well and tell us what happened on day 1 really, isn't it?
So there's a line that runs through Jo Uchit Samjho Wo Karo, from Doklam to 2020 to Operation Sindoor to actually making India stronger. I want India Atmanirbhar, strong and capable of taking on enemies in the neighborhood, whatever. What are we doing? We're just kind of doing something about now reversing all the stuff that we've done about China. There's a time in 2020 we declared that everything about China is not to be had. There's a press note 3 and what have you. All that has been reversed. There's no transparency on what happened in Operation Sindoor, what happened earlier, what happened in Pahalgam actually, who's accountable and responsible for the complete breach of security there. Mr. Amit Shah, the Home Minister, was running security in Jammu and Kashmir. Just a few days before the attack, he asked Omar Abdullah to leave the meeting in a high security meeting he was holding with the Lieutenant Governor and other people in the state. So all this kind of just makes us very worried that a big country, which you say is a 4 trillion economy, 1.4 billion, the largest, most populous country in the world, are we in good hands and is attention being paid to us? Because it's not an empty claim of just transparency. Transparency keeps the system honest. There's proper feedback, there are correctives, and that's how countries move and grow. It does not make you weaker. The absence of feedback is what leads to the balloon bursting. But, well...
Right, we'll have to leave it at that. On that note, we should also mention that crucial to the Rafale deal, as Seema was mentioning earlier, was the role of Anil Ambani, whose name also features very prominently in the Epstein files, on which also the Modi government has not said anything. So we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much, Seema and Hartosh, for joining us, and to the viewers for watching.